Richard, how you doing?
Very good, Phil. Thank you very much for having me.
No, you're welcome. Anytime. So you are a trauma recovery specialist, and you deal with, all. I guess I'm assuming all types of like childhood trauma and all that kind of stuff. So just give us a little bit of your background and where you come from and what got you into that.
Okay, well, thanks for the warm welcome and for the wake up call. I got to tell you, guys, I had an afternoon nap and I never woke up. And Phil kind of poked me with a message to get me here, so I came in by the skin of my teeth. So thanks very much for waking me up. I would have hated to
Absolutely.
miss this podcast. I'm looking forward to it all week.
Yeah, I have
And my
too.
name is Richard Tierney. I'm originally from Ireland, and I moved out to Thailand almost 25 years ago. And because honest, it was a geographical change. I was running away from myself. I think we all, at some stage, many of us are running away from ourselves or our old realities or whatever.
Mhm.
And I was lost. I had suffered a trauma when I was a child. And it filled me with such shame and self-loathing. And I felt as though I was shame on the family and I'd let the family down. And I was broken. I was never to be the same again. And all these kind of things. At 12 years of age, you're too young to make those decisions. I was in a state of such despair and despondency at that age. And I didn't think to turn to my parents. I thought if I told my parents, it would bring such shame upon them and upon me. And I couldn't tell my teachers or anyone else. And I tried to keep it in myself. And so, of course, what happened was I shut down emotionally and I stopped growing as a person. So I went through 12, 13, 14, and suddenly when I got to 19 or 20, I'm like a 12-year-old child in an adult body. So I'm crap around adults. I'm great around kids. And everybody's saying, God, isn't Richie a great uncle? He's great around kids. And the truth is, I'm comfortable with kids and I'm out of my wits, scared shitless with anything that's an adult.
Mhm. Right.
And that's basically where it was. And so I'm running away from life. I'm running away from myself. And I go through it's not intention to trigger anybody here, but I go through all that self-harming and soul destroying and two attempts at suicide, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I don't want to talk about it too much in case it triggers anybody, but I went through
Well,
that
yeah.
stuff that people go through in
Mhm.
my situation. And the last thing that saved me was a geographical change.
Mhm.
After becoming a chronic alcoholic and a chronic compulsive gambler and joining 12 fellowships, and introduced to a spiritual solution and embracing that spiritual solution and stopping drinking, stopping gambling, and getting some sort of order into my life, I still wasn't okay with being me, living where I was living with my family. I still felt like ashamed of myself. They say about God forgives you and Jesus dying on the cross means your sins are forgiven. But I couldn't forgive myself. I couldn't forgive that I was broken and I had brought shame on the family. And that was stayed with me forever. So geographical change was the next thing. I think I'm lucky that I took a geographical change. I think if I hadn't, I wouldn't be standing today. I would have done something drastic. But a geographical change of leaving Ireland to come and live in Thailand was the best thing and the only thing that I could do of myself, but that worked. That
Mhm.
gave me some out. Now, it wasn't a healthy change. I came over here to get lost in the jungles and die or there
Mhm.
was no wonderful thing of becoming a great person and whatever. It was just a case of escaping life and family and intimacy and connection with people and to
Mhm.
go somewhere to die. That was really the intention.
So I don't mean to interrupt you, but there was a movie years ago. It's called Leaving Las Vegas. It had Nicolas Cage in it, and he was playing it. He was an alcoholic, and he went to Vegas to basically drink, gamble, and drink himself to death. And so I think that because I have some childhood issues as well. I have had a very abusive father. Was not a nice guy. He was born in 1927, and I was born in 1979. So there was a huge gap. So he did not. So kid, like when he was coming up, you could bludgeon a kid and get away with it. You know what I mean? Kids were like
Yeah,
they were meant to be seen and not heard. And that's just
I
and
remember
I
that.
remember and he would just run. He dropped out of school in the seventh grade because he had to work on the family farm. He was born in West Virginia. Not a whole lot of intellect, not a whole lot of stuff going on for him. So and he would project that shit onto me,
Yeah,
like, oh, you're stupid and worthless and all that kind of crap.
yeah,
And then, and there was other things too that I'm not going to get into because it's deeply personal. But so I understand where you're coming from with the shame because you feel like you're nothing. And it's like, and our parents sometimes, I don't know where your trauma came from, and it's none of my business. But what I'll tell you is that the parents don't understand the responsibility they have with their children. You know what I mean? And it could be to this point to where it gets, you have to be very careful with how you treat your children. But there's that fine line. I'm not a parent. I chose not to have children. because it just is nothing. I grew up in a house with 9 kids. It did not appeal to me, and and we're not even Catholic. But it was just it was a hard process to get through as an adult to realize I'm good. I know that I know my worth. I know what I can do, and I know that I'm in most for most part a good person. But to more to your point, what you were saying was that the running away from that hurtful part of your life is almost just second nature for humans. I think. I think because there was that saying that we run to pleasure, run away from pain. And it's like, so when you want to hide it and you want to drown it because you can't get it out of here, it doesn't stop.
So yeah, that's very true. But I think we've terrible things happened in the world today where we believe that our feelings and emotions are mental disorders. We have an
Mm-hmm.
anxiety disorder, and everything's a disorder. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like you're not allowed to feel anything because it's
Right.
a mental disorder. And this has happened to our kids. I think a big part of the problem is they took religion out of the schools and churches and the families. I think that when they deprived families of the Bible and of understanding about feeding the whole in the soul and feeding our soul, it left kids very much isolated. And then parents got into working Saturday and Sunday and working 7 days a week and not being
Mm-hmm.
available at home, not being present. And that was another stab in the back of children and whatever. So we need for people to understand that your feelings and emotions are not mental disorders. They are God-given instincts in the face of danger. When you're faced with danger, real or imaginary, it can be a memory of the movie Jaws and you're afraid to go into the water because you saw a movie Jaws. If it's imaginary and it says you don't go in the water,
Mm-hmm.
you don't go in the water. You just
Yeah.
trust your instincts, whatever they are. If in your home, you're a situation with your father, you run
Mm-hmm.
away.
Yeah.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
care what anyone says. Don't run away, face whatever. You run away. You run for the hills. You hide
Well,
out and you go to. So
it's
yes,
it's it's the fight or flight,
exactly.
100%.
But
Yeah.
there's four responses. There's fight, flight, freeze, and acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
They say it's fawn, but it's really, I believe it's acceptance. I believe we have these responses to danger and we're meant to trust our instincts. So if you're anxious and the anxiety tells you to fight, flight, freeze, or accept, you do one of those four. You don't apologize for it. You don't make any excuses. You run. For me,
Mm-hmm.
I went to Thailand. I did a geographical. Now, it wasn't the greatest thing I did. It disconnected me from my family, but it kept me sane.
Yeah. Listen, so there's sometimes that when you have people in your family that are just absolutely toxic people, need to get away from them. Like I have a bunch of brothers. Well, a lot of so most of my family, like so my dad had 4 kids, my mom had 4 kids, then they had me. So I don't have any full blooded siblings, right? I don't talk about them much because I don't have a lot in common with them because the one that's the closest to age in me is 9 years older than me. So I'm 46 or about to be. So he's in his like almost 60s or 50, whatever. My math ain't math
Yeah,
today. But so
I get
he
that.
yeah, and it's just like so there I learned from my brother Paul's mistakes. He's no longer with us. He got killed in a bar fight in 99. And so he's no longer with us. So he stayed with us for a time here in Florida, and I was able to see what he was doing like with alcohol and whatever his problems were. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So I was able to learn from somebody else's mistakes. But when you have to separate yourself from the people that cause you harm, there's nothing wrong with that. Like if
No,
someone
and
has hurt your trust or betrayed you in some form, it's okay to cut them out, whether they're blood or not.
that's a big part of the recovery. You have to understand you must trust your instincts. Your
Uh-huh.
feelings and your emotions are superpowers. They're given to you as a blessing to protect you for the protection of self-preservation of the human race.
a hundred
If in the
percent.
times of Vikings, some villages took up arms, some ran for the hills, and some played dead. If they hadn't done those three things, the village would have been wiped out.
Right.
They did whatever that one individual could do to save the tribe. And that's what you have to do. If your mind's telling you run away from your home because it's all toxic, you run away. You hide in the garden, you hide in the garden shed, you hide down the road, you stay at your friend's house all day long till you have to come home. You run away, you hide, you freeze, you play dead, you shut down emotionally. Man, you disassociate. Disassociating is a coping skill. It's a
Uh-huh.
healthy coping skill. But we're told I have dissociation disorder. If you have dissociating disorder, brilliant. You're dissociating. You're getting out of that toxic environment into a safe, even if it's curling up in a ball and rocking. If that's safe for you, that gets you out of that toxicity. I don't share this very often, but I remember at the age of 27, about 27, again, like I'm a child trapped in an adult's body. 12-year-old child emotionally in a 27-year-old body. And I'm working in my family business and I'm on my day off and I'm not a healthy person and I'm not healthy around people and they're all getting it. And finally my family come over to do an intervention and I'm at home in my house, at my own house. I'm sitting on the couch watching, I think it was a John Wayne movie, something crap. I'm chain smoking, watching this thing on TV. My family come to the window. I don't see them coming up. They come up to the window and they're knocking the window to get my attention. I jump up. If I'd seen them come, I would have hit them, but I didn't see them until the last minute. And they could see me through this net curtain. I pull the couch out from the wall. I crawl around the, and they're looking at me. I'm only about 4 feet away. There's a window between us. I get down on my hands and knees. I crawl in behind the couch. I put my hands on my head and I'm sort of rocking back and forth like this, not listening to their sounds. They're banging the window. They're crying, Richie, please let us in. We want to help you. And like this. And I'm there and I'm curled up with rocking my head back and forth saying, go away, go away, go away. In my own space. They finally get up and leave because they're afraid if they come in, I'm going to do something crazy. They walk away. 10 minutes later, I look up, they're gone. I relax myself, sit back down and watch John Wayne again, smoke another 20 cigarettes and feel safe. Utter insanity, utter crazy thinking. But in that moment, I did the only thing I thought would keep me safe, and it kept me safe. Not
Yeah.
condoning it, not saying it's a great coping skill to use again. I never use it again. But I can see how me being crazy kept me sane. So there's no right or wrong way about you, as long as you're not hurting another person.
Or yourself.
Yeah, we're not hurting yourself or another person. It's okay to disassociate, shut down emotionally, mentally, physically, run away, hide. And the acceptance is if you can let God into your life, give him a second chance. I think God doesn't do much to us, but people who use God can use him as a weapon.
Oh, 100%.
Religious teachers and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, they can really use God against to control you and ruin children's lives with the idea you're going to be punished and you're going to go to hell. And this thing about if you commit suicide, you're going to go to hell is
Mm-hmm.
one of the worst, terrible
Well,
crimes that man does to our old men. I think people who commit suicide, if they can't take this life in this fallen world and they choose, it's not an easy choice to choose death in any circumstance.
no.
So I think to say that, oh, your child's going to go to hell and you can't have him buried in the graveyard because he killed himself is the worst
No.
human error of judgment that pushes people
Mm-hmm.
away from God. So there's all
Yeah.
this stuff, but the other one I want to get back to was what you mentioned about your family. The family we're growing into doesn't necessarily be our tribe.
Right.
They may be a perfect tribe for each other. So your father and mother and your 8 brothers and sisters, whatever, may be a perfect match and you just didn't fit. You're like a square peg in a round hole. Doesn't make them wrong or doesn't make you wrong. Just you weren't a good fit.
Yeah. Well, let me share a
Yeah.
little. There is that. I don't. I'm not saying it's biblical because I can't remember off the top of my head. But there's that saying. The blood is thicker than water. The full saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So what that means is like, you and I, let's say we're friends. We choose each other. So the blood of that covenant is thicker than sometimes the water of the womb, which means that you can choose your family. You can choose who you want to love and who works with you and who helps you. They don't necessarily have to kiss your ass, but it's
You're
just,
choosing your
someone.
tribe. You're choosing your
Exactly.
tribe.
Yeah. You're,
You're
you're
born
choosing
into
who
your
you.
family.
Yeah.
You choose your tribe. So I like to tell my clients, if you're a geek or a nerd or a bookworm or an
Uh-huh.
introvert and your family are all outgoing, business, sports, whatever, then you are in the wrong tribe, not in the wrong
Uh-huh.
family, because I believe
No.
that God plants us in that family, that we'll grow through that experience, that we'll be stronger for it. So I believe God planted you in that family with your mum and dad and your 8 siblings, and you suffered in that family. So it would make you stronger so that here you are suddenly at 49 years of age and you're able to carry a message on your podcast to help other people.
Uh-huh.
And having come through what you went through, you're a stronger person with a stronger message for it.
Uh-huh.
Now, I like to think of, and I love this bit, you and I together doing this podcast, we're reaching your audience.
Uh-huh.
Somewhere in your audience, one person takes hope from this and they go
Uh-huh.
on, they start their life over and they get married and they have children. And one of their children in 3 or 4 generations creates a cure for cancer or AIDS. And
Exactly.
no one will know the part you and I played in it.
Uh-huh.
Our podcast helped to create that scenario, but we'll never get the accolades or the recognition for it. But
And it's
God
not
knows, and
necessary.
God made a plan 7,000 years ago that Richard
Uh-huh.
Tierney and Phil Young would come together to reach the person that God targeted that the cure for cancer and AIDS would be and you and I played our part. And the fact that God knows, that's all that matters. And you're here on this Phil Young show because of your childhood. You've made you strong enough to be able to hold this space. And don't say I'll never get married, because I got married at the age of 52 and I'm now 64. So just, or not,
Yeah,
not
no, I've been
52.
married twice, so it's
Okay,
like,
so
yeah, no,
so
yeah, and neither obviously neither one of them worked out well, but that's neither here, and
yeah,
that's also part of my trauma.
yeah,
They were two very different women, but that's a whole different story.
yeah.
But
So we have to find our own tribe. That's a big part of recovery, is to find your own tribe. Understanding that where you came from doesn't define who you are.
of
So,
course, yeah,
what you have to, for my clients, I try to explain to my clients that what happened in the past didn't happen to this man you see in front of you today. I'm a
100%, yeah,
64-year-old man today. I'm on this Phil Young show. I'm married. I've got 2 adult children going to university here in Thailand. We live in Thailand. Both my parents are dead. My grandparents are dead. All my uncles and aunts bar one is dead. And of my 5 siblings, one died of leukemia. And they're all living in Ireland, and the family home is sold. Now, if I go back to that 12-year-old young Richard, his parents are alive, his grandparents are alive, all our aunts and uncles are alive, all his siblings are alive, and he's living in the family home. We're 2 different people completely. And I have to understand that what happened to that child didn't happen to this 64-year-old man. I carry the memory of what happened to that 12-year-old child, and I carry sympathy pains for him as a show of support and solidarity.
mhm.
But at some stage, I have to let go of those sympathy pains.
Yeah, of course. Well, sometimes like when you hold on to it too much, it becomes a millstone around your neck and it just holds you down. You have to let
Yeah,
that go,
yeah,
and you have to be able to rise above all that. And it's not always easy to do, but because I know people that I've seen therapists in the past and all that, and as much as I enjoyed talking to somebody, I've been to 3 different therapists in my life, and only one was decent. You know what I mean? And it's like I actually got into an argument with one because here in Florida, governor, his name is Ron DeSantis, he passed a bill that doesn't let homosexual teachers or LTBG teachers talk about their sex life in front of children, which I think is a good thing. And they dubbed it the "Don't Say Gay" bill, which is not what it's called at all. It was just this bill to make it to where they had to stick to teaching basically. And me and this therapist got into it, and I said, "Listen, if this is how you're going to be, if you're going to force some sort of agenda on me, whether it's a left or a right agenda, this isn't going to work." And then I got up and walked out of the session. I said, we can agree to disagree, but I'm not here for your personal beliefs. I'm here to help heal what's going on in my brain and in my heart. You know what I mean? So, and that's the thing is when you have some people that they take advantage of that position that they're in, and it should be like a therapist is there's a level of trust there, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't have an opinion, but it's like it's like teachers in school. I don't think they should be able to like there was one here and when our illustrious president Trump and I voted for the guy 3 times, but there was a woman. She had a water gun and she was shooting a picture of him. I'm like, that's too much. You know what I mean? That's so. But my point is that I got into it with a therapist about it, and I never went back. So I've never gone. And I went to one more, and it was just a debacle because it turned into pay me money, and I understand.
The problem we have is we have to understand a therapist is human, and
Of
they're
course,
trying to make a living.
yeah.
And we're their meal ticket. I had 2 therapists. They're the most kind, loving, empathetic people I met. And I really appreciate having them in my life. But they couldn't help me because I had a hole in my soul. They had all
Uh-huh.
this idea of treating how I felt, but how I felt wasn't the problem. The science tells us it's about cause and effect. The effect is how I felt,
Uh-huh.
how it manifests in my life, my mood swings. That's the effect. But the effect isn't the problem. But in this world today, they treat the effect. They treat anxiety and depression, schizophrenia, but they're all the effect. They're not the cause. The cause is what happened in the past is the cause.
Uh-huh.
And the sense of hopelessness we suffer. So because of the trauma event, I was left in such a state of hopelessness. Again, I tried to commit suicide twice. I self-harmed by alcoholism and gambling and everything else and self-harm. The sense of hopelessness was so deep in me that was the problem caused by the past trauma. And it manifested and presented with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress. But they weren't the problem. So the therapists spend their time treating the effect, which means you're never going to get well. You're going to be in therapy forever, and that's going to be their meal ticket. I hate using the word meal ticket, but they're out to make a
That's
living, and they're out to
yeah,
provide for their children and pay their bills and have a nice life. And if you're their meal ticket, they're going to make as long as possible.
yeah. It's like pharmaceutical companies. They're not, they don't want people to really get better because if they cure,
Well, I think deep down
whatever.
they want. I think they deep down they want people to get better, but they have that logic that if I get the people get better, then I lose my customer. So they're kind of
Hmm.
cutting the catch-22. Now, lucky enough, in the mental health industry, I think it's like 1 billion people have mental disorders. So you, you're never going to run out of customers. So you can help people get better, and you'll still have customers left over afterwards. It's going to take probably 20 years to clear away all the mental disorders in the world. But you have to understand that mental disorder is a diagnosis. It's
Hmm.
not who you are. If someone says you have PTSD, that's their impression of what you're presenting with when you go to them.
Right.
But you don't have PTSD. You have hopelessness that presents when you come to the client. When you go to see a therapist, you share the worst because you're looking for help. So you'll share the worst in that moment. But that doesn't mean you're in that state all day long.
Yeah.
So you can go through your day living with your crap and be functioning as a normal adult. You go to your therapist and you share your therapist everything. But nobody's sharing all the good things to your therapist because then they're going to say you don't need any help. So you share all the worst, and they kind of go, "Oh, this is terrible. You've got depression disorder and anxiety disorder. We're going to give you medication and therapy for that." And suddenly they're treating your bad days, but your bad days aren't who you are.
Hmm.
What happened is the past is intruding upon your present. How do you get rid of the past? That's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. How do we get rid of the past so we can focus on living in the present?
Hmm.
So my therapy is the case that we say, okay, Richard, you have got to give the past trauma back to 12-year-old Richard. Now, how can we do that? Well, there's a holistic visualization practice, which is really beautiful. You go into this trance where you see yourself meeting your younger self. So imagine for 1 minute, Phil, you're there and you're meeting your 14-year-old Philip Young, okay? And since you're Phil Young, we call him Philip Young. Since I'm Richard Tierney, I call him Richie Tierney. And he's a 12-year-old child in shorts and school uniform. He's got brown curly hair. I'm all grey now, got a grey beard. He's got brown curly hair. It's before the trauma, so he's innocent. He's got this lovely smile, happy smile on his face. He's looking at me saying, Richard, will you ever give me back my shit? I can't cross over into the light until you give me your shit. You've
Hmm.
tied me to this world. I didn't
Hmm.
like this world. It almost killed me, but I beat it so you'll be free today to have a life beyond my wildest dreams. Please give me back my shit so I can leave this plane of existence. And when you go through this whole holistic practice, you feel the sense of release from your body, like you're giving it to him. You see him stepping into the light, and I'm telling you, it only takes a moment. In a split second, you feel this release in your body, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, like all that weight leaves you.
Hmm.
And then it's no longer I who suffered the trauma. The person with the trauma has left this plane of existence. And now I can talk about the past. It doesn't affect me anymore because I'm talking about what happened to him, not what happened to me.
Hmm.
Because when I give the details of the baggage away, I can't remember the details now. They're gone from my psyche. It actually happens where because you give the details and the baggage away, something in your brain psychologically shifts it out of you. And now I can talk about what happened, but I can't tell you the details. So I know for a fact it didn't happen to me.
Right. Yeah. So that brings me to a question that I got. So there's this new cutting edge technique of using ayahuasca or mushrooms to kind of help with trauma in the past. Like I've heard some celebrities, like the only one, well, I can't say celebrities, I say celebrity is Ron White. He was on Joe Rogan and he was saying that he went down to South America and did for a week and was doing ayahuasca and it actually helped with it helped cured his alcoholism and he's like it helped cured his trauma from his past. So I think that there's probably a good way to rewire the brain in some ways, but I think the way that you're doing it is probably a little bit better because I think and I don't know because I'm not a neuroscientist or anything, but I think that if you have to be careful when you use hallucinogenics because I think it can fundamentally change your brain. It's like Robin Williams when he was alive, he used to do cocaine and all that, and he told one of his co-stars for Mrs. Doubtfire, the little boy, he was in one room, he was all happy and making everybody laugh, but as soon as he got alone, he entered a state of depression almost
Yeah.
immediately. And the kid went in to check on him, and he said, listen, that drug did something to my brain. So I think that the brain's a very fragile thing. Yes.
your mood changes. Having alcohol or drugs, anything at all you put into even sugar. You're having a bad day and you eat sugar or an ice cream, you feel like a surge of energy. You feel a difference.
The dopamine
Anything
thing.
that's
Yeah.
even, yeah. So even anything that's stronger, like a drug or mushrooms or alcohol or drugs or whatever, anything you put into your body, the stronger it is, the more effective, more powerful it's going to be. But the withdrawals are going to be 10 times
Worse.
worse. And that's for drug addicts, for alcohol, and anything. Now, again, Rob Williams, if you're a multimillionaire and you can afford to do this stuff, fine, then that's very easy for you. But if you're an ordinary Joe Soap and getting this drug from South America, you have to fly down there and stay down there in a retreat for whatever, it may sound like a great idea, but most of us can't afford that.
Absolutely. I mean, I know it was like $5,000 a week. That's
That's
friggin'
yeah. So
ridiculous.
like that's even just for the drug on its own. But then he's having this wonderful life where he doesn't have any expenses. So I think we have to. But again, I've been watching a lot of documentaries about medicines. This thing, where like there's a cancer one you can get, and there's one also for autism. Nicotine. Nicotine is
Hmm.
very good for autism. If you
Hmm.
take nicotine shots or to patch on your shoulder blades, or there's nicotine in potato, white potato, red tomatoes, and some other vegetable, and eat those, and they will help. So create that diet for children where they're eating potatoes, red tomatoes, and this other vegetable. I forget what it was, but you make pie and you eat this food, and that in the system helps to alleviate Parkinson's and autism. I think it is the two. But there are different food products and mushrooms. There are things that will change how a person feels. But I think they're something you take continuously. Like you just can't take them once and you're healed. So
Right.
then you're creating something that you're taking all the time.
And I know that another one is for like people that have, because I don't know if you know my background, but I'm a surgical technologist by trade, so I help surgeons in surgery and that kind of thing. And we were doing a colonoscopy one time. This patient had ulcerative colitis, terrible disease. It's terrible on your body, and actually nicotine will actually help with that. It'll abate some of the symptoms with it. So I mean, it's just a delivery system here in like in cigarettes and dip and all that stuff, where the tobacco is the carcinogenic portion of that.
So, what they're saying is don't nicotine in cigarettes is like a no-no because
Hmm.
you don't get the nicotine in its natural form. It comes in cigarettes, and there's all these chemicals in the paper and whatever, and so on. But if you eat the foods that have nicotine in them, then it's natural to you, and you can eat them every day, and just make that more of your diet, and that'll have the same effect. Now, it won't have as fast as taking nicotine as it is, but buy tobacco and chew it would be more helpful than smoking the tobacco
Right.
and then having the food. So then there's ways around it. But again, you're talking about then taking something for life that alleviates your condition, but it's, you take it consistently, like taking a pill. So it's the same thing again. My idea is that we if we can give the past, I share with clients. Imagine if you and I feel our best friends and we're best neighbors, and I'm employed, unemployed, and I get an offer to work on the other side of the world on an oil rig for 3 years. And I go to you, say, Phil, can you take care of my house when I'm gone? Here are the keys, and I take off to Australia somewhere for 3 years. When I'm gone, you get a call for a job, and you remember I've got a car on my drive, and you go to my car and you get in my car and you drive off to the job and you come back the next day, you put the car back and then suddenly you start using the car all the time. I'm nowhere around, so you're using it all the time. And it's like it's your car, like you're using it all the time, taking care of it, all that kind of stuff. And then 3 years later you get a message from me saying, Phil, I'm on my way home. I'll be home in about 10 days. And you're kind of going, you got the little angel on one side saying, positions 9/10 to the lower. When he gets home, tell him to feck off. It's your car. And then the angel on the other side said, no, Phil, you must put it back. It's not your car. You must do right. So you eventually listen to this voice here. You put the car back. You do all the service on it. You put the keys on the whole table. You calculate how many miles you put on it. You put the money for that on my whole table. And then you go away. And of course, you don't sleep for days, racking around about I shouldn't and I should, whatever. And then one day I come to your door and I knock on your door and I've got a bottle of something for you and I've got chocolates or something. And I kind of go, I give you a big hug. Thank you for taking care of my house and my car. I really appreciate it. There's your money back. You reminded my car, and I walk away. And the sense of relief you feel from giving that car back, and it's gone from your psyche and it's gone out of your whole thing, the freedom you feel is profound.
Hmm.
You've carried this for 3 years, and then you felt this guilt for the last few weeks about you took it, and what am I going to say to you? And suddenly I take it off you, and you're kind of going, oh my God, I never want to take his car again. I never want to mind. I never want to take anything off anyone again. Like that's the
Hmm.
relief is superb. And that's the goal of this program, where we give the past back to your younger self. And the younger self basically starts off by saying, you dirty looking idiot. What are you doing bringing my past into your present because it's destroying everything it touches in your life. Please give me my shit back so I can leave this plane of existence. And then you
Yeah.
feel the release of giving it, and you see him stepping into the light, waving, saying, "Thank you very much and goodbye." And that release is like when you give the car back. It's like, oh my God, it's gone. It's gone. And in that moment, there's no taking drugs for it, no taking medication for it. You go and see your therapist and they say, "How do you feel?" No, no, the past is gone. It's nothing to do with me. Now, please help me in how do I set healthy boundaries with my family? How do I manage my life? And then get your therapist to work with setting up plans for you to live in the present day.
Yeah.
And the past is no longer part of you. It's gone. You've let it go and you're a new creation.
Right. Yeah. And that's a way of giving it back. So I'm one of those people that the past screws up my present. Right. Cause I think as it always, it with people that have done things to me in the past, and now whatever, it's people that hurt you is what I should say. And you have to, I try to forgive, but and then I also try to forget at some point. Something reminds you of it, or you feel like, it's just there's similar situations to where you were, and it kind of triggers that response. You know what I mean? Like I am because of what I've been through and my mom was a great mom. Don't get me wrong. It was my father that was the rough one. But you look at them and you think, my mom did the best she could. My dad, on the other hand, not so much. But you look at that younger version of yourself, and it's like you don't want to get back to it, but you want to get to the point to where you can, like you said, give it its shit back, and that's not always easy to do.
So there's two things to do, and they're very simple things to do. I say they're very simple. They actually are, but again, we've been conditioned to be victims. That this whole
Mhm.
world conditions us to be victims and broken. And breaking free of that condition is the hardest challenge you have. If you can break through the condition of you're broken, you're less than, if you can get past that, then this is going to be simple for you. So the first one is you grab a sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle. On one side you write down, the right hand side you write down, Phil Young, age 49 years of age, married twice, living in wherever you're living, own home or whatever, renting a home, blah, blah. No contact with family, no contact with father, mother, brothers, whatever, blah, blah. Of my 8 siblings, one is dead. Whatever it is, you put down information. Okay. And then the other side, you put down young 14-year-old Philip Young, or whatever that younger version of you who suffered the most.
Right.
9-year-old Philip Young. Young, 9-year-old Young lives at home with his mother and father and 8 siblings, lives in the family home, lives in this state or in this town or this city or at this address, and goes to school here, is a child. These are his school friends on one side. And they put a photograph of him on that page and a photograph of yourself on this side, and clearly see that you're not that person. So you learn to stop saying, this happened to me. You learn to start saying, I'm carrying the memory of what happened to that child. And
Right.
that shift helps an awful lot in the healing. Because
Mhm.
you get to learn to say to yourself, I'm living here today, having this chat with Richard at 49 years of age, and he's in Thailand from Ireland, and I'm in wherever in Wisconsin or wherever I am.
Mhm.
And I'm so far away from that life of that 9-year-old child. It didn't happen to me. It happened to him. I'm 49. If my father came near me today, I'd clapper him. Like he wouldn't get close to me because I'm 45, 9-year-old man. He wouldn't
Mhm.
touch me. I'd pick up a 2x4 or I'd take out a gun he wouldn't get anywhere near me. That's the
Yeah.
truth.
No, no. I actually had a therapist. To the one that I disagreed with. She was like, "If your father was here right now, what would you do?" I said, "I would ball my fist up and put it through the back of his head."
Yeah, and that's the truth. So you can't to say that you were. So I can't say today I was sexually molested at the age of 12 because I'm a 64-year-old man. If that person who went to that 12-year-old child came near me, he wouldn't leave this room alive, and I
Right.
wouldn't have any guilt or shame over it. He wouldn't lay his hands upon me. It just wouldn't
Right.
happen. Not to this person. Now
Yeah.
that 12-year-old child was in such a state of a lack of confidence or understanding that they let it happen in victim mode. I'm not a victim today. That person isn't coming near me. So I have to realize it didn't happen to me. That's the biggest thing I had to learn. At that page of paper, I could see the picture of this 12-year-old child in a school uniform, big squinty smile on his face, curly brown hair, joys at spring before the trauma happened, full of the joys of spring, like this beautiful, innocent child, 12 years of age. And then on the other side, there's this guy with grey beard, grey hair, I've had with the vaccines. I had a mild heart attack, too many strokes, and kidney failure. So I'm an old man now. I'm only 64, but I'm an old man now compared to. So I can see the differences in the two pictures. That's the first. And then the great thing about I tell all my clients, please let God into your life. Give him a second chance. And for the simple reason that when it comes to forgiving your abusers, we don't forgive them to their face. So On the cross, Jesus never forgave Pontius Pilate and his accusers to their face. He knew if he did, they would have laughed at him and they would have scoffed and they would have, used it against him. He waited till he was on the cross, and on his last moments, he said, Father, please forgive them, for they don't know what they do. He gave his anger to God. Now, what happens is when you give your anger to God and you stop the fight yourself, God guarantees you that they're going to face his wrath at the end of their days. And I got thinking, if I got someone to confront my abuser today, if I went for a court case and we got this guy before the court, they'd say the prisons are full, and it was only something that happened 50 years ago. We'd put him in jail for a year and out with good behavior in 3 months. Would I be happy with that result? And I'm thinking, no fucking way. I mean, I want this
Right.
guy to be nailed to a cross. And say, okay, well, if I give that to God, he may have a wonderful life on this earth. He may have everything that I don't have, abundance of everything. But on his deathbed, when he crosses over, he's not seeing St. Peter at the gates. He's going straight to hell, and he's going to burn the fires of hell for all eternity. Not for 100 years or for a year and out in 3 months. He will burn the fires of hell for eternity if I give it to God. And if that's the only reason why you have God in your life, that's enough reason to have God in your life. So now you have to do is you have to show God you're giving him. So you have this prayer, God, say, God, this person abused me when I was 12 years of age. I'm sick of being seeking vengeance and justice and going around letting this eat away at my soul. So I'm giving all the anger and rage to you, all the need for justice off to you, all my victimhood and martyrdom, I'm giving it to you now. And I give this to you by praying for that other person. I hope that person has a fantastic life, achieves everything that I want in my life, I want them to achieve. Everything I want in my life, I want them to receive. All the abundance of wealth and prosperity that I want for me, I want you to give it to them. I want them to have the most wonderful life on this earth that I want for me. And when you give that prayer, God says, Richard has let go. And he's shown it by praying for them means he's forgiven them. So I'm now taking on his wrath. And now I am not that I'm no longer triggered by that person. If I
Right.
hear his voice or I see a picture or I see something about my past, I'm not triggered about it because I've given it to God. And I know when he meets the maker, he's going to burn the fires of hell for all eternity. And I'm thinking, is that an equation? Is that equal punishment to the crime that happened to 12-year child? In my eyes, more than equal. Thank you very
Right.
much, God. And that gives me the freedom to let it go. That he's
Yeah.
not getting away with it. Because of my terms, he's gotten away with it. It's 52 years ago and no one knows about it. No one's done anything. And if they were found out now, he'd probably get a slap in the wrist. And that
Right.
doesn't equate to crime. And rather than me letting it eat away at me here and eat away at the whole of my soul and break my spirit, I give it to God. I say, okay, God, I'm giving it to you. It's on you now. I'm giving up all need for vengeance, justice. I'm giving up all my anger and rage and all the triggers and nightmares and giving it all to you. And I want you, when his time comes, I command you to let him face your wrath. The Bible says that you harm one hair in the head of a child of God. Better to climb up to the highest mountain, put a weight around your ankle and jump off the cliff than to face my wrath. Well, I want him to
Hmm.
face your wrath.
Hmm.
And then that's it. End of story. And suddenly I find here I am. I'm at peace. I'm not getting triggered anymore by thoughts of that person or thoughts of my childhood. I'm free. And then when I do that healing event and I give the past back to my younger self, I'm able to release it because I've given the anger to God. Now I'm free to give the details and the baggage to my younger self. And it's not a long process. If I work with a client, I'm saying to a client, we're going to work together either 1 to 13 sessions. The one session is the healing event. It takes 2 hours. We give your past back to your younger self. And then for the third hour of those 3 hours, I'm going to take you through the 12-step program of trauma recovery anonymous to show you how to clean your side of the street. And then once a week for 12 weeks, we're going to do one step at a time. Step 1 the next week, step 2 the next week. At the end of the 12 weeks, we're done. We're not doing therapy forever where you can come and bitch and moan to me. We're done. You have your life back. Go and live your life.
Right.
Get married, have kids, travel the world, but the
And try to
past
be
is
a
gone from
functioning
you.
adult.
And so that's the whole goal, should be, but therapy shouldn't be any more than 12 sessions and then they're out and they have their lives back. But this idea I had one poor client, he'd been with 30 therapists in 20 years, and he was absolutely fucked. And he's like, I'm trying to find someone to help me. And when I worked with him, he went, no, I can't give up therapy. Therapy's my life. I've built my whole life around therapy. I'm in all these support groups. I can't give up my identity. And that was the biggest problem he had was, and I get it. I'm not throwing stones from my glass house. If you've built up a whole identity about being a victim, it's very, very, you've been conditioned. Very
Hmm.
hard to break free of that. That's the biggest challenge in this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to well, I don't know. I mean, like this is out of my wheelhouse, but it's like I feel that some people will cling to their trauma because it's become who they are, and then they keep going to therapy for every little slight, like their oat milk latte was too warm or too cold or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
And you're not,
yeah,
I know you're not knocking when you say that. It's just the way it is. I mean, please don't think we're throwing stones from our glass
no,
houses.
no, absolutely not. No, no.
We've done this ourselves. I've been the
Mhm.
same thing. I've complained
Right.
about little things. That's because I was abused over and over again. I remember my family getting sick of hearing me talking about I'm not responsible for what's happening to me because I was abused. I did that
Mhm.
for 50 years. So when Phil says about complaining about the coffee, I can identify with that. I would use my victimhood as a weapon to
Mhm.
push people away, not to have to take responsibility, not to be responsible, not to be intimate, not to be empathetic, this kind of stuff. And we're conditioned that way. And we're expected now as clients going to therapists that we are broken. And we're meant to bring that brokenness every week. And we get therapy, medication, whatever, till the next week. And
Mhm.
it's this terrible, like one of those wheels in a rat cage, and you're going around doing the same thing, and then you look forward to that one hour in the week when you're with your therapist, and you feel like I wish my therapist was my mother, or my father, or my husband, or my wife. This is the only place I'm validated.
Mhm.
When is they're allowing you to be a victim? And then they medicate you. You go off and you try and survive the medication for a week, and you come back and you get to be a victim again, and it feels like wonderful. But the person you're paying that person for their service. If you say I've run out of money and I can't pay you, they'll drop you like a hot potato. And
Yeah, exactly.
it's a case of you are a commodity, and as long as you're paying, they can offer you the service. But if you're not paying, they'll have to find somebody else because they got their bills to pay. At
Mhm.
the end of the day, you're a commodity serving their industry. I don't mean to. I'm not being disrespectful of therapists. My sister's a therapist, and I've had therapists in my life who've been the most wonderful, caring people. And I think they, for the majority of therapists, they are the most wonderful, caring, nurturing people. But they're still in a job. They go home to their wives and their husbands and their children and their lives afterwards, and they pay their
Mhm.
bills from the fees they receive for their services. There is that side to it. And I think the Hippocratic Oath has gotten watered down somewhere in the middle of
Oh
all
yeah.
that.
Trust me, in the industry that I work in, it's you're like, what? You see some doctors that like I can't get into specifics about it because of HIPAA and things like
But
that, but
we see
yeah,
it.
but I mean, you see it, and it's like listen, there's unscrupulous people in all ways of
In
life.
every profession. Yeah,
Yeah, I
completely.
mean, because I can tell you, there's some are worse than others, and then you get some doctors that all they care about is money, and then you get some doctors who really genuinely want to help a patient. They get insurance that an insurance company that ties their hands or whatever. It's a mess.
But again, everything has gone AWOL, I believe. 80 years ago, there was no mental health industry.
Mhm.
And that in 80 years now, we have 1 billion people diagnosed with mental disorders. You would think in 80 years, the numbers would be coming down, not going up. You think the
Right.
medical health profession, if they're treating mental disorders, they would have some sort of cure in place. That is not something that keeps growing as an industry. It's like the fastest growing industry, the most money making industry. It's got therapy and institutions and hospitals and rehabs
Mhm.
and therapies and medications. And it's like this huge, big industry. I mean, we go through phases where I remember growing up, when I came out of school, they said, get into computers. That's the whole new industry. And then after computers, it was a case of, we'll go back into doing crafts, like, plumber, petrol, all these, the trades are the way
Trades, yeah.
forward. So for one stage was go back into trades. There's great money in trades. There's no tradesmen around. And then the next one was medicine. The next one was psychology. And there are industries and there are great industries to go into. If you're coming out of school and kind of what kind of industry would I go into where I can make money to provide for my wife and children? Unfortunately, psychology is up there as at one of the top. And that's just down to, well, as you said, if we were healing everybody, well, then eventually there'd be no psychology because everyone would be healed. So it's like, and it's that kind of stuff. And the medical world, and there's so much like the vaccine thing. I mean, how the vaccine started, and I take the vaccines, I get a mild heart attack, too many strokes. And I saw a program today. They said that if you got the vaccines, your level of even now 4 years later is it should be I think it's 100. If anyone didn't get a vaccine, this
Mhm.
level that they have in the body is like 100. But if even 4 years later, this level of this thing in your body is actually like 4,000. Like it's just you know at the time you get the vaccines, it raised 25,000. and then people
Mhm.
were even over that 100,000. And I don't know what the median is
Protein
I'm
or
talking about, okay?
right,
But
yeah.
they're saying now, 4 years later, it's still like 10 times what it should be. And that's 4 years later after the vaccine meant to have worn off, so this kind of stuff. And it's like, that's somebody did something. And also
Mhm,
now it was created in a lab. We have
mhm.
to understand about someone somewhere did something, and they didn't do something that was in line with the Hippocratic Code. I hate conspiracies and getting into conspiracies. But the
Right.
truth is, there's a time when you can go to doctors and know you always could trust your doctor, medical doctor, psychological doctor. You could always trust your doctor to give you the right advice and to want to help you. And nowadays, I'm not saying you can't anywhere, but there is a doubt that shouldn't be there.
Well, there's definitely a lot more suspicion when it comes to the medical industry as a whole anymore because
And that's very
it's it
sad.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
very
and
sad.
yeah, the medical industrial complex is just it's become a machine, and it's not, especially here in the States. It's, I don't know what it is like in, in the UK and other places because I don't live there, but I know here, like I remember when I first started off as a surgical tech, I had a job in Louisiana. Now, yet again, unlike, just like therapy, therapists and things like that, surgeons need to get paid because they have their office and overhead and all that and bills and all that. So this kid had fell down, fractured his humerus, his upper arm. First words out of the surgeon's mouth was, "What kind of insurance does he have?" And I mean, I get that, but that to me, as a person that just works in the medical field, it should be, well, what type of fracture is it? Blah blah blah, and then because you're the first thing that you should care for the patient
Yeah,
first.
it is. I mean,
It's
we've all
unfortunate.
been conditioned. It's not just we've been conditioned to being victims. The
Hmm.
doctors have been conditioned to sell a certain product, a certain
Hmm.
medication, or whatever it is. It's and so I don't want to be throwing stones at doctors or psychologists to say, oh, but in this world, there's a lot of uh, unfairness. Let's say
Hmm.
unfairness across the board in every walk of life.
Of
In
course.
shops, they'll try and sell something to be on the shelf for years. But all these different things, selling cars,
Hmm.
it seems to have seeped into every single industry about the bottom line is money, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's an epidemic of greed, and you're never going to get rid of greed because I like having money. I like
Yeah,
to be able to buy what I want and what I need,
yeah.
and you kind of need it to live. People talk about how they want to live in a society of utopia and all this other stuff where nobody needs anything. Well, that's a dream, and it's kind of bullshit, you know.
So when I had my therapy, which is, I was 20, I think it was 29 years of age, my therapist, I was told I would have 12 sessions only. That was all you could have, 12 sessions. And then after that, you get on with your life. We try and work a program for you in 12 sessions.
Uh-huh.
And then that
Good.
would be over. And I had mine was a sexual thing, so it was quite difficult. And then I had a female therapist, and then it was just like a male therapist. So I had him for 12 months after the first, but it was only meant to be 12 months. But they just felt it was better with a man than a woman. But they did their very best, and they really cared, and they're very empathetic and loving and kind and supportive. But they're out of their depth because it wasn't how I felt; it was this hole in my soul. You could look at me and look like I'm a normal, happy, go-lucky guy, but inside me, I'm like eating away at me the
A lot of
shame and
pain, right?
the self-loathing, and you can't see it. And my therapist couldn't see it. They could medicate
Uh-huh.
the feelings, they could tell me how I felt and what's going on, but they couldn't treat the whole of my soul. I needed a spiritual solution. Now,
Uh-huh.
again, the thing about giving God a second chance, the Bible promised you miracles. And I'm thinking, if someone could give me 5 minutes of peace of mind from the voices in my head that I'm undermine me all day long. And they'd say, "Which you're no good and you're crap and your life, you'll never be happy, you'll never get married, you'll never get a job, and no one will ever work with you. And who would want you for a therapist?" Oh, this stuff over the time. But then I said, you can ask God to remove these voices for up to 24 hours at a time. And then I realized these voices have been my strange bedfellows for the 64 years. I don't think I'm ready to get rid of them altogether. But if I can get rid of them for 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there, and then I realize if I get rid of them for 8 hours at nighttime, and get 8 hours of peaceful sleep without nightmares and flashbacks, that would be a wonderful gift. And that would be a miracle. I mean, because that's
Right.
just not possible. I've lived like 30 years with these voices, nightmares and flashbacks at nighttime and tossing and turning. And my wife's saying, who's in the bed with us? And I'm kind of going, it's X in the bed with us and get him out of the bed kind of stuff and whatever.
Uh,
So I end up going to God, get down on my knees, say, okay, God, I want you to take these voices from my head. And I listed, pen and paper, everyone who annoys me, irks me, frustrates me, triggers me, the whole list, at about 12 people. And these are the 12 people, and X, Y, Z, the whole way down. Take this off me, okay? I give them all to you freely, unconditionally for the next 8 hours. I take that list, I go into the bathroom, I tear it up, I put a match to it, I light it, and I flush it down the toilet. In that
Mhm.
moment, there's something psychological they say, but when you do this, it leaves your environment. I
Mhm.
flush it down the toilet, come back into the bedroom, get into bed, turn off the lights, close my eyes, put a smile on my lips. I fall into an 8 hour sleep where I have no nightmares, no flashbacks, no voices, no triggers. I wake up kind of going, oh my God, I just had 8 hours of the most beautiful sleep. This is like crazy. And I go, okay, Lord, I get on my knees. Thank you for those 8 hours. I'm going to call on you during the day. And then during my day, if I have to meet my boss for a chat for half an hour, I go into the toilet and say, okay, God, I'm going to meet my boss. His name is so and so, and this is what we're talking about. Take that off me for half an hour. Flush down the toilet. I go into him, man, and I'm calm for half an hour. I can have a conversation, and I can take his advice and suggestions and his criticism. I'm not reacting. And it's like, yes sir, whatever.
Mhm.
And I come out kind
Yeah.
of going, how did that happen? So there is a great benefit to healing, to allow God to. So for me, I realized these were miracles. For me, now they were major miracles. For someone else, it might be a minor miracle. But for me to get 8 hours of peaceful sleep at night with no nightmares, no flashbacks, no voice in my head, that was a miracle. And then to get 15 minutes here or 20 minutes there, they were all major miracles because I had spent 40 years with these voices ruling
Mhm.
and defining me. You know that thing where the voices tell you to you're no good and you're thinking to do something and say no you're going to fail or don't. I've had those voices, but I realized they were my constant bedfellows, and I wasn't ready to give them up completely. But I would have to do it over time to get to a place where I'd finally say, okay, God, take them off me for 24 hours. Next morning, okay, I want 24 hours today, and so on, and then get to a stage where suddenly they're not welcome. And
Right.
when they try to come in, I say, okay, lads, you're not welcome. Get out of here, And I have these, it says to me now, we don't, I'm not saying God's a kid, keep those voices away. And she's thinking I'm loop the loop. But again, it works. So if it works and giving God your voices gives you peace of mind at night, or you're going on a date for an hour, or you're with family or whatever, and you don't want to react, just say, God, take this off me for the next 10, 15, 20 minutes and see what happens. I mean,
Right.
try it. If it doesn't work, fine, it doesn't work. But if it
Right.
works, it's a new coping skill for you. And now don't tell
Mhm.
your family and friends. Your family and friends might be atheists and unbelievers. Don't tell them because that'll alienate you. Keep it perfect. The Bible says, go into your bedroom, close the door, close the curtains, turn off the lights and climb into the wardrobe. And in secret, have the conversation. So for the rest of your life, don't tell any of your family you're letting God in. Do it in secret. Okay, God. I can't let my family know. They disown me if they knew you were in my life. But I'm asking you now, give me 8 hours of peaceful sleep. Give me an hour for this interview, an hour for my family. Give me 15 minutes for the commute. Give me 20 minutes downstairs with my wife. Whatever it is.
And that's the thing is like you like for me, I'll be in the middle of something and I'll just get those moments of self doubt. It'll be my dad telling me I'm a useless whatever. I'm never going to amount to anything kind of bullshit. And it's like so you have to just block those out and just say you know what, go away, leave me alone. Try to give yourself the ability to have the confidence and do what you need to do to get it done.
Problems. I
And
when I say leave me and get away, they come back. When I said,
yeah,
okay, God, take them from me, send 1,000 angels down, take them off me, they'd go. There was something in giving it to God over me saying, okay, voices,
right,
get the fuck out of here. In the beginning, I gave it to God. And after I got used to it, it
yeah,
became a natural when I say, like you said, okay, get out of here, and they go. But in the beginning, I had to lay those foundation stones that the destination was to God, to
right,
wherever.
yeah. All right, man. Well, so now you feel like wrapping up?
Phil, I've loved it. I could talk for hours. It was very
Well, I tell you
enjoyable.
what. Well, let's do this. Down the road, we'll have you back on if you want,
I'd be
and then
honored. I'd be honored to get back on.
yeah,
Next time I won't have a nap beforehand. I'll be
that's
awake
okay.
for it. Yeah.
I can always send you a message and wake you up again.
I've carried some sort of hope to your audience. The big thing
Uh,
here is
mhm,
hope. If we have
yeah,
hope, everything changes. If you can
exactly.
have
And
hope that you can let go of the past, suddenly you feel better about yourself until you start
mhm,
thinking better about yourself. It's
mhm.
searching for hope is the answer to all of this.
If and also for anybody that's listening, if you ever feel bleak or feel like things are going bad, just give it to God or seek someone to talk to. It doesn't necessarily need to be a therapist, but find a friend, find somebody that you love, then have a talk with them. So just so anybody knows, where can they find you?
I don't have a website. This program is on the Amazon platform. Healing Any Trauma Memory is a 2-hour event for getting rid of the past, giving it to your younger self. And then the 12 Steps of Trauma Recovery Anonymous is the program for the 1 hour after it, and then the 12 sessions afterwards. I have an email, information@traumarecoveryanonymous.com. I don't have a website, no sign of a website coming anytime soon. Again, my books are available on Amazon, and that's my email. And if you email me, I can arrange to work with you one-on-one, or if you're uncomfortable coming on your own, you can come with friends and do a group of 2 or 3 or 4. I've worked with up to 10 people at a time. It can be easier in a group than on your own. But again, or you and your therapist, or you and your fellow traveler, or somebody to sit in with you if you feel uncomfortable being on your own. And that's how it is. Or I work with your therapist. Thank you very much for having me, Philip.
Problem. Thanks again.